Hello and welcome to One on One. I am Cyril Stober. Now, the Constitution of Nigeria provides for an independent entity, the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation, to audit the public accounts of the Federation. Under the law, the Auditor General of the Federation or any person authorized by the holder of that office shall have access to all the books, records, returns, and other documents relating to their accounts. Now, the Auditor General of the Federation also has powers to audit the accounts of the area councils of the Federal Capital Territory. Now, all of this points in one direction: transparency and accountability in the use and application of public funds. My guest today is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, a certified forensic accountant, and an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, as well as the Nigerian Institute of Management. His working career cuts across both state and local governments. In January 2017, he was appointed Auditor General of the Federation following a rigorous written and oral interview in which he emerged tops. Let's welcome Mr. Anthony Mkpe Ayine. Thanks for being on One on One.
Thank you, Cyril.
All right. You're the Auditor General of the Federation. And, in our introduction, we also said, apart from being a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, you're also described as a certified forensic accountant. Who is a forensic accountant?
Thank you, Cyril. Let me, before I answer that, to correct that, I am also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation, not associate, a fellow. Now, a forensic accountant is one who prepares a report that can be used to defend evidence in court, to substantiate evidence in court. So a forensic accountant prepares a report which can be usable when a matter even go to court.
So they are basically different from just any accountant. This is not a rule just any accountant can perform. You have to get to a certain level to do that.
Definitely, yes.
Right. Okay. And you have provided the services? You have, at some point in time in your career, any examples of where you had to be called in for the purposes of using your knowledge?
Well, in the public sector, we have not had a case that resulted in a litigation, because the essence of the forensic, in this case, to support court evidence.
Okay, so all along your career, even before you became Auditor General of the Federation, you haven't had to be called upon in any cases like that?
Not quite, but what I do is to guide my personnel in the collection of the audit evidence, and to emphasize, in case a report prepared results in litigation, you have to be prepared so that the evidence provided is able to sustain such litigation.
All right. Well, in the public view, the role of an auditor is one that is always viewed with some form of trepidation. Easily, people would say, well, the auditor is the one who throws the spanners in the works when, expenditure is about to be made. They're the ones who delay appropriations. They're the ones who raise questions, and sometimes even when there are no grounds for those questions. But describe for us the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation and what it entails and how significant the Office of the Auditor General is in public life in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Like you rightly pointed out in your introductory remarks, as provided for in Section 85(2), the Office of Auditor General for the Federation is the supreme audit institution of Nigeria, and indeed the foremost accountability office in Nigeria. And essentially, the office is to help to enthrone transparency and accountability in our public finance management. Very, very important. Transparency and accountability is the focus of the office. And indeed, luckily we have the current administration fighting corruption and the office to be able to support the fight against this anti-corruption. People do not need to fret or be afraid about maybe auditors coming to work. What is important is to strengthen the accountability process, and the work of the Office of Auditor General for the Federation essentially is to add value to our public finance management system.
Well, so how has this office carried out this mandate in the last few years?
Yes, the office has been executing the mandate very well by issuing reports as provided in Section 85. After the audit, the Auditor General submits his report to the National Assembly. And this we have been doing dutifully.
Well, by the Constitution, you have wide-ranging powers. Every government, every public institution must open their books, their ledgers to you, to go through them. This also includes the area councils of the FCT. While people can say, yes, the office has done a lot in auditing the accounts of public institutions, not much is heard about when it goes into the area councils of the FCT. So has that also been going on?
Yes, we have been auditing the area council and reports submitted to the Minister of FCT, and also report included in our annual Auditor General annual report to the National Assembly.
Well, speaking about reports, you've had a number of reports in the past. Now, we're seeking to know, have there been breaches? Have there been poor implementation of financial practices all over? Or has it been a perfect running system?
No, I wouldn't say it has been a perfect running system. There have been infractions, and once we observe infraction, we report. And the such infractions are contained in our report to the National Assembly.
Now, when that happens and you make a report to the National Assembly like you did some years ago, what's the next thing that should occur after you made your report?
Thank you very much. This is where the issue of the public financial accountability process comes in. Normally, when the Auditor General submits his report to the National Assembly, the National Assembly commits this report to the public account. And the public account is expected to examine the observation raised by the Auditor General and the recommendation made. And if the accountability process is carried through to a logical conclusion, the public account is supposed to make their recommendation to the plenary session, and then the plenary will pass resolutions. These resolutions are supposed to be sent to executive for implementation. It is when this cycle is done, when the recommendation of the Public Account Committee, which will result in resolution of the plenary session, is transmitted to the executive, then the implementation process will follow. And the process of follow-up of the implementation of this resolution, this will conclude the accountability process. But this is where we have a challenge for now, because quite a number of times we don't get to the point where the report are treated to the plenary and transmitted to the executive. But something happened recently in the 8th Assembly. For the first time, reports were treated by the House of Representatives Public Account Committee and were laid on the floor of the House of Representatives. And I think one of the years was resolution passed by the House of Representatives. And I think that is a good development.
Well, you see, you make your report, and then the Public Accounts Committee has to go through, and whatever they now decide on at plenary will now be transmitted to the executive for implementation. Now, over the years, I mean, since you became Auditor General, how many of these resolutions would you say have been passed, transmitted to the executive, and why, if this hasn't been done, why has the process been, interrupted, so to speak?
Well, like I remarked earlier, since assumption of office as Auditor General for the Federation, the very first one is that which the PAC House of Reps laid on the floor of the House of Representatives, and a resolution was passed. I think that is the one to the best of my knowledge.
How often and how regularly do you view the books of public institutions, MDAs, and
Yearly.
Yearly.
We submit annual reports.
Okay.
We submit also recently special reports.
Let me take you to the issue of accountability and transparency. Over the years, this administration, the Buhari government, has committed to fighting corruption and has committed itself to unraveling infractions in public institutions. But the question some people ask is, it's virtually impossible for these things to go unnoticed if due diligence is performed in the areas of auditing of accounts. How do you explain that? In the past, we've had so many cases of MDAs not performing what they're supposed to do, not taking due diligence seriously. And of course, people have been auditing their accounts. How come these have not been brought to the fore?
No, it's not true that infractions are not brought to the fore. And let me just, before getting to the very main question you asked, you made reference to President Muhammadu Buhari, and I give him credit for what he has done. Immediately on assumption of office as president in 2015, he met with the former British Prime Minister, David Cameron, and entered into an agreement or seeking for the need for British to support the anti-corruption fight in Nigeria. There was an agreement between our president and the former British Prime Minister. The fallout from this agreement led to the UK National Audit Office to become a delivery partner in providing assistance to the Office of Auditor General for the Federation. I'm taking you through this line to show that is the determination of our president towards fighting corruption. And the resultant effects of this agreement, the UK National Audit Office have had between 2016 to 2018 6 missions to Nigeria, that is providing technical assistance to the Office of Auditor General for the Federation, taking the office in technical training to assist in improving on our audit methodology. And I tell you, quite a lot has been going on. Our auditing process has changed significantly. And in the course of our audit, the reports which we issue to the National Assembly, perhaps what may appear as if infractions are not brought to the fore. What I explained to you earlier, that taking the accountability process, the public accountability process to a logical conclusion, because once this is done, the effect of it will become very clear. So if you access our website, www.oau.gf.ng, because after submitting reports to the National Assembly, we host a report on the Audit Bill website. You see very clearly. So it's to follow the process to the end. I think this is where the challenge is, and we need to direct attention along that line.
All right, on a general note, while not restricting this to the Buhari administration and your tenure as Auditor General,
Yes.
in the past, it's been shown clearly that all kinds of infractions had been committed. Public office holders had abused the privilege of holding public office and had gone on to perpetrate all kinds of things against financial regulations. You think at the period MDs and government officials got away with this, it was as a result of the auditors not playing their role correctly?
I don't think so. The auditors have been playing their role correctly. I still take you back to, for instance, if you take a matter to court and you are faced with, like what experience we used to have, adjournment, and the case is never treated to a logical conclusion, you won't have the end result of it. The same way it happens here. The office of, or the auditors will carry out the audit process and report our issue. For us to have the effects or the result of this audit work, this report need to be treated to the end. Sanctions are imposed on those who have committed infractions. And it is the deterrent effects of such sanction. When people are sanctioned, it will serve as a deterrent effect. But if no sanctions are...
Okay. So what you're saying in effect is that the auditors have been doing what they should do,
Sure.
but they can only do as much and leave to the the authority that should apply the sanctions. And if they had failed in the past to do it, the auditors can hardly be held responsible for that.
That's correct.
Let's come back to the Constitution and the role that it has given to the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation. This, by the Constitution, should be an independent entity. How independent are you, truly?
Thank you very much, Siri, for that question. Independence is key and critical. And let me use this to explain. Auditors are expected to provide an unbiased and honest professional opinion on the work which they audit. This unbiased and professional opinion will be relied on. For instance, even the auditee needs this unbiased and honest professional opinion. The investors, donors, agency will rely on this opinion. And the basis for relying on this unbiased and professional audit opinion is the independence. Independence is at the core of this reliance by the users of the opinion expressed by the auditor. And so the issue of independence becomes very, very important. There are three components in this independence as defined by the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institution. You have the legal independence. Yes, this we have. The Constitution, like you rightly quoted earlier, provide in section 85 2 and sub 7 provide the legal independence. But the other two components of this independence is what we call administrative independence. The administrative independence, that is the ability of the audit institution to recruit their own staff, have their own human resources policy and system. You have reward and compensation management. And because, you see, for you to, the greatest assets, the most valuable asset the audit office has is the personnel. And the quality of the personnel you have begins from the point of recruitment. If you don't get the right quality of personnel, it will affect your training policy, it will affect your work. And so the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institution, assessing the independence of an audit institution, don't only look at the legal independence, but consider also whether a Supreme Audit Institution has administrative independence. The third component of it is the financial independence, whether an audit institution has financial autonomy to be able to execute plans and programs of the audit institution. So these three components make up what audit independence as defined by the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institution. Let me also say that in 1977, at Peru, a conference at Peru, what is popularly called the Lima Declaration about audit independence, defined very clearly these three components of audit independence. Well, for us, yes, the legal independence, the constitution is very clear. Where we still have challenges is on the administrative and the financial independence.
How much can this affect the work of the office, the Auditor General for the Federation? Because, okay, you just have one component out of three. I mean, the legal independence is stated there, but you neither have the administrative independence nor the financial independence. How does that affect your work?
Thank you. It affects the work, like I have mentioned. If you don't have a clear human resources policy that provides very clearly about your recruitment, about the career development, about reward and compensation, definitely it will affect the quality of personnel available for you to execute your audit programs. Now, inadequate or inappropriate financial resources, if they are not available, definitely it will affect how far you can execute the programs you have planned. If you have planned to execute maybe 100%, if appropriate resources are not available, the financial resources, it will lead to curtailing the level of work you are able to carry out.
At some point in time, can the auditor be compromised? Because you talked about unbiased report being key to the whole process.
Yes, it's possible if there is issues affecting the audit's independence.
Right. So that's where integrity comes in,
Yes.
in the quality of operatives that you have. You've talked about some help you've received from the UK government at that time in terms of capacity development. Let's hear more about the capacity of your office.
Okay, thank you very much. To help the Supreme Audit Institution, Nigeria, to do more and to meet up international standards. On assumption of office in January 2017, we launched a 5-year strategic development plan. And in this 5-year strategic development plan, there are 5 domains which this plan captured in details. The first domain has to do with the independence and legal framework. The second domain has to do with organization and management. The third domain has to do with human resources. The fourth domain has to do with audit standards and methodology. And then the fifth domain has to do with communication and stakeholders management. Now we captured these 5 domains because even within our regional body, we call that is African Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions. We have institutional capacity building framework, which work around these 5 domains that I have mentioned. And the regional body assess each Supreme Audit Institution on how well you are doing within these 5 domains. It may interest you to note that there is a rating of 1 to 5. As we speak, the Nigerian Supreme Audit Institution is rated level 2. Best. It's rated level 2.
So on a scale of 1 to 5?
1 to 5, yes.
That's not good enough, is it?
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the implication of that is that the Nigerian Supreme Audit Institution is still a developing side, but not well established. And this is where the challenge we have, and we have been striving within the 5 domains, like the independence and the legal framework. One of the things affecting, because we have been working towards progressing to level 3. Now, there is a challenge that we must have an audit act. Because as I speak today, beside the Constitution, there is no audit act in place.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the question of an audit bill. Recall that in the 8th National Assembly, there was talk of an audit bill which was passed by both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And it's still one of those bills that hasn't been assented to by the President. Who were the initiators of that bill? And let's get to know more about that bill and what it aims to do.
Thank you for that question. What I would like to say here is I cannot be able to say precisely the initiators of the bill, but I think it's one good thing that has happened to our country, whoever initiated the bill, because it is towards, making the Office of Auditor General for the Federation a strong audit institution, which I think, if that happens, it will support the anti-corruption fight of Mr. President. Now, in that bill, which was passed by both houses of the National Assembly and transmitted to Mr. President, there are provisions that have been made. For instance, we may mention about the Office of Auditor General submitting audit report to the National Assembly. In that bill, there is a provision very clearly stating a timeline, 120 days, that Auditor General report submitted to the National Assembly and committed to the Public Account Committee. Such report will be treated within a time frame of 100, and that is a good development, so that you won't have a situation where the Auditor General submit report to the National Assembly and it's not treated. Now, you put it in the introductory part. Yes, Section 85 to provide for Auditor General or any person authorized by him to have unimpeded access to books, records, returns, and documents relating to public account. Unfortunately, there are no sanctions if an auditee fail to grant access to the Auditor General or the authorized person on his behalf. Now, the bill has provided there are sanctions, for such situations. And a whole lot of such charges, for instance, where expenses are supposed to be disallowed, that have been provided in the bill. So that bill, if assented to by Mr. President, passed into law, will empower the Auditor General and it will strengthen the anti-corruption fight.
Well, the bill is before the President and still hasn't assented to it. What are the moves or efforts you've made, especially seeing that you do have a ninth assembly now, in the event that this bill does not scale through?
I must say that, Siri, I have confidence that I gave you a rundown of actions which are pointers to the fact that Mr. President, right from the word go, had interest to strengthen the audit institution in Nigeria. I told you of his agreement with the former British Prime Minister. And let me also inform you, when we launched our 5-year strategic development plan in September 2017, Mr. President was the one who launched. Though he wanted to be in, but I think he traveled out of the country. The former finance minister represented him and pledged support to the implementation of this 5-year development plan. And I tell you very clearly, we have received tremendous support from Mr. President. Support that we have carried out quite a number of reforms. Through the support given to the office, we have developed a number of audit manuals in line with the domain number 4. I told you about audit standards and methodology. We have developed a regularity audit manual, compliance audit manual, financial audit manual. We have developed manuals and the operational they are in use helping to improve our audit system. And we have also to empower the audit staff be able to procure over 1,500 laptops and distributed to staff to improve the technical capability of staff. So I am convinced with the effort Mr. President has made towards, empowering the audit institution in Nigeria, I'm confident that the fact that that bill has not been returned, that Mr. President would have, because he knows the importance of that bill, and I'm very confident that he will assent to that bill because it will support the anti-corruption fight in Nigeria.
Right. Oftentimes you hear about provisions in either in the law or by public pronouncements of policies that are supposed to ease the work of the various institutions. And it's easy for one to think that, well, as soon as this bill is assented to by the president and it becomes an act, that all the troubles, the headaches of the office of the Auditor General for the Federation would go away. Is that the case? Or what are the challenges we think that, what specific issues will it solve, and how would it enhance the operations? Would that mean bye-bye to all challenges?
I think I will be too optimistic to say it will end every, but I can tell you confidently, I mentioned to you, if you look at the domain on independence and legal framework, if that bill is assented to, automatically our rating in that domain will just go up. We will be qualified to move to level 3. And also, domain number 3, in terms of human resources, it will also change the metrics in that domain, and it will improve quite a number of things. The challenge may not be completely, but I can assure you that a lot of things will be improved and will make the audit institution more effective and, responding positively to the fight against anti-corruption.
Okay, the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation is the supreme audit institution in Nigeria. But of course you do have the states as well, and they also have auditors. Matter of fact, you were once the Auditor General for your state.
Yes,
what is the level of collaboration and cooperation between these institutions, from the federal and the states, and of course the local governments too?
Thank you very much. I mentioned to you the domain number 5 about communication and stakeholders management. Now, there is effective collaboration going on between the federal, the states, and the local auditors general at the local government level. For instance, in December last year, precisely, we had a conference on assessing the Nigerian's implementation of Sustainable Development Plan, a conference that brought together the federal auditors, the auditors general state, the auditors general local government. Because we have reasoned together, if the Federal Office of Auditor General Federal is progressive and the offices of Auditor General states and Auditor General local government are not moving, especially take the area of capacity building. As I speak, my office has been appointed by the World Bank as independent verification agent on a program that the World Bank is giving assistance to the state. And in this program, there is a component which will help capacity building, channeling through the Office of Auditor General for the Federation. Because it is quite clear that capacity building at that level is quite still low. So we are working together to see how even the manuals which we have developed at the federal level, we have been making them available so that they can, adapt this manual to fit their own environment. So there is effective collaboration with Auditor General, states, and local government.
Well, what would you say is the ratio of auditors to the population, and is that adequate?
In Nigeria or in
Nigeria?
Well, I would say with improvement in technology, because you try to balance the human number
All right.
and technological development. So properly handled. But if you compare to the population, definitely is inadequate. For instance, we have averagely 1,600 plus. But at the states and local government, the numbers are even lower. So if you look at the human number, definitely will be grossly inadequate. But where you make up is employing technology.
But that too, you also have challenges with in employing technology to drive your work forward. What's the thing about not many people becoming auditors?
When not many becoming auditors?
Wanting to become auditors. Not being a choice, a profession of first choice, and say, look, the accountants would rather stay on an accountant than, go on to become auditors.
Well, it's a matter of preference. And number one, let me say, especially in our environment, is quite a risky job.
Right. So let's talk about that. What are the risks about being an auditor?
Okay. Yeah, because, you are writing about infraction of others. And I may not go too far on that. You know the risks involved in the process. And you also, there is another factor I mentioned here about the human resources management aspects. The compensation, comparing to the risks involved, may discourage a number of persons going into the audit profession. But I tell you, it's a very exciting profession, which, it provides you an opportunity, especially our own Nigerian environment, to make your contribution towards accountability in this country. I've always said this. There is no way you can talk about good governance without the pillars of transparency and accountability. So it's a very exciting profession that it gives you the opportunity to make a valuable contribution to transparency and accountability, which will lead to good governance.
How do you respond to the saying that yes, they're there to ensure transparency and accountability, but on the other hand, they can also serve as a source of delays, unnecessary delays into the whole process of the use of public funds?
I don't think so. The rules are very clear. Now, if an auditor raises a query and is responded to, I don't think it will lead to delays. I don't think that is true.
In prosecuting the war against corruption, what is the key role of the auditor here? And it's been said that no infractions can be carried out effectively without the active connivance or collusion with the auditors?
So if that happen, that person has lost, his ethical consideration. A professional auditor must abide. I think this is one area among the standards and the manuals we have launched. For instance, in my office, we have launched a code of conduct and ethics, and also set a disciplinary committee. A professional auditor must abide by the ethics of the profession. So, for an auditor conniving with maybe the auditee to commit fraud, that person has lost his integrity, because for an auditor, integrity is key. Any auditor that lacks integrity, definitely your reports will not have any value. So what is key is integrity. And for us as auditor, we guide this issue of integrity very closely.
All right, the auditors watch, they look at the small print, they look at the tiny figures and go through them. But who watches over the auditors?
We have a system. Like I told you, we have introduced a code of conduct and ethics. We have set up a disciplinary committee, and I want to say that we are working. The public can now report any misbehavior of an auditor using our website. We are creating a facility in our website where the public can report if any auditor engages in irregular conduct, which is unethical. And so by so doing, there is a process where we assess ourselves and make sure that an auditor will not act contrary to the ethics.
Okay, there's a body that you set up.
Yes, the disciplinary committee. Where matters can be referred. And if the auditor is found wanting, necessary disciplinary action will be carried out.
Have you found use of that committee frequently, regularly, given the scale of what we hear about the huge infractions that have occurred over the years?
Well, like I said, these reforms came, that is of recent, an assumption of office.
Of the president?
Well, no, I said my assumption of office.
Okay.
Actually, we launched a couple of reforms, manuals, and the Code of Conduct and Ethics manual which we have developed is of recent. Even the disciplinary committee, what we did is that after launching the Code of Conduct and Ethics, you need a process of sensitization to sensitize the auditor, to get to know the conduct of a professional auditor. So we allow time so that when an auditor is found wanting and is brought before a disciplinary committee, will not claim ignorance of so we allow time, a learning process for them to appreciate the code of ethics, code of conduct and ethics which you have. So now that the disciplinary committee has been set up, and like I told you, where maybe an auditor has misbehaved, the public can use our website, which I give you as www.oaugf.ng, and then you report.
Well, Auditor General, do you sometimes face some form of resistance, delays, when you have to look into or look at the books of public institutions who ordinarily should easily submit to you their receipts, returns, and books? Do you sometimes have challenges accessing these books from public institutions?
Yes, we do have such challenges. And this is one area too that have been provided for in the bill which has been transmitted. Now, the bill also provides a process whereby at the end of an audit assignment, there is what we call exit conference, where the auditor will discuss his findings with the client. Is very necessary so that the client will know the areas, the observations that have been made. And in the bill, it is provided for that exit conference has become something mandatory. In that exit conference, observations of the auditors will be discussed. And then at the end of that exit conference, both the auditor and the auditee, the management of the auditee organization, will sign, because it will provide an evidence that the observations that were raised or found during the audit process were fully discussed. Because we quite often find a situation where when we go to the public account, the auditee will say they were not aware of the observation. So this provision has been made now. And the beauty of this provision also is that, it will also help to alleviate fears and create a kind of confidence building between the auditee and the auditor. Create an environment where the auditee management and the auditor will actually understand the audit process in place.
Where there are delays in the process of accessing the books for the purposes of auditing them, what do you do?
Well, we make a report, and this is the area where I mentioned to you earlier that the bill has also provided where you face such challenges, there are sanctions.
Okay, so for right now, there are no sanctions.
No, there are no sanctions.
So any department of government, any agency of government can delay the whole process of auditing, and then they get away with it.
It's one of the challenges we still have now.
Sometimes you hear of government agencies, and quite recently we've heard of reports, why not mentioning their names directly, of certain agencies of government that have not audited their books for years.
We did what I call status report, especially the government parastatals, corporations and commission. Yes, we have challenges with this. And last year we did a status report on that, which we submitted to the Senate. And after that status report, I think we are seeing some marked improvement.
But some are still foot dragging.
Definitely. There are still some challenges in some.
Auditor General, if that bill were to be assented to by the President today, how fast can you swing into action to bring defaulters to book?
Immediately, because plans are in place.
So which means you do have, an audit of all those that have not been truly compliant with the provisions. You do have them, all right.
Of course. And like I mentioned about the issue of sanction, the bill had provided clear sanction penalty if, because for parastatals, their audited financial statement are supposed to be submitted to the Office of Auditor General and a deadline given. Okay. Now, in that bill, it is clearly specified.
120 days?
Not, that is within 90 days.
90 days.
At the end of, the year. Now, if in a bill now before Mr. President, once there is such an infraction, there is a penalty straight away.
A penalty would it also include the chief executives of such organizations being penalized?
I need to confirm there, but I think there is a monetary duty. But yes, it may lead to making recommendation because last year we were in UK National Audit Office during a study tour. And an issue came where the Auditor General UK National Office says, there, if that happened, of course, the Chief Executive will not continue.
All right.
There.
Would you recommend such for Nigeria?
Of course. You see, I will, because the issue of accountability is key and critical. And so for an organization to operate without rendering accounts, then, if I may use the words, such a management may not be seen to be responsible, because a responsible management should take issues of accountability seriously.
All right. Mr. Anthony Mkpe, Ayine, FCA, Auditor General of the Federation, it's been nice talking to you.
Thank you, Siri.
All right, and we can only hope and wish that the bill, the Audit Bill, is finally assented to and becomes an act. Okay. At that time, if that happens, we might ask you to come again.
Thank you
tell us
very
just how
much.
much you would improve on your work with that. But for now, we'd like to thank you for coming on this program.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. And that's our program today. We thank you for watching. Next week, we'll be back with One-on-One. I am Cyril Stober. Bye for now.